Hello and welcome to Extra Time.
No more Mourinho talk.
Well, there will be Mourinho talk, I imagine, in this part, and maybe some parts to come in the future. But
why do a lot of people hate when you talk about their team, or their club, or their manager? But yet when you don't talk about them,
right?
No, they hate when you talk about them negatively.
Yes.
You're not supposed to criticize. It doesn't matter what. It doesn't matter how poorly they do.
Yep.
You've got to say they're great.
But let's face it, the only reason we talk about teams normally is in a negative connotation.
No, it's not.
Yeah, because there's only so much positive.
That's your fault.
Say, isn't it?
As you set the tone.
Lots of positive energy.
You're a negative person.
What are you pointing at? Don't get your finger out.
I'm positive, but unfortunately, we live in the real world, and you can't be all the time.
No, you can't be positive all the time.
It's excuse me. If you don't talk about them, they get annoyed, and if you do talk about them, they get annoyed. But people don't understand. It's Manchester United. Win, lose or draw, no matter who manages them, they're a big deal. I mean, it's like they're not going to go away.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, so we're going to be talking about you again.
Why not Eddie Howe for Manchester United can build a team, play attacking football, and a positive attitude?
Yeah, I mean, look, I'll be honest. I think there's some building blocks before, or if it ever comes about. But I think for him, if he does leave Bournemouth, the next step is somewhere.
So, like, he would go to Spurs, for example, if Pochettino went to United. Would that be the progression that you would see?
Of all the things you've said over the years, that's not the most ridiculous thing you've ever said. So, yeah, that's where Spurs fans might go, well, we're not, we're aiming bigger than that. I don't know, but yeah, I mean, there's an argument for some of these younger guys who have cut their teeth at smaller clubs and have done particularly well to get bigger jobs. There is an argument for that. I think that's quite a long way off, though, for Eddie Howe. I think it'll be a stepping stone.
Hey, Shaka.
Yeah?
What's your opinion on the job Manuel Pellegrini is doing at West Ham?
I'm very impressed. After a poor start to the season, where things were looking really poorly, now West Ham are looking all right. They're, what, 8th right now? 2 points behind Manchester United?
After a bad start.
Your team.
He's a good manager.
He's a very good manager.
Real Madrid, Villarreal, he did well with a
West Ham.
Club. Man City, he's a very good manager. As is Rafa Benitez, I was saying the other day, his other old club. Two guys that really should be working with a better budget than what they are for their talent levels. What are you laughing at?
Nothing. Something a producer said in my
Are you going to listen? People may have noticed that you have during the recent shows, you're taking a lot of coughing fits.
I didn't cough once in the last show.
Yes, you did.
Yeah.
It wasn't a fit.
When Julian was talking, you went for the old...
It wasn't a fit.
It wasn't a fit. It was just...
You know what's coming because he's like that.
Yeah.
And then when we go to the... When we go to the remote, he's like that.
I have a little tickle. What am I supposed to do? I've got a cough.
I mean, is it nerves?
It's nerves. It's definitely nerves.
You've done a few shows, lad. Is it nerves?
I know. I'm not.
I mean, we can replace you if you're not.
I've had some issues recently.
Oh, yeah, I know that. Seb doesn't cough.
No, that's true. That's very true. Maybe Seb should come in.
Adrian doesn't cough, but even if he did, he wouldn't know he was coughing.
That's it. I'm off the show because of the cough. Gab is here, everyone.
Gab's still here.
Gab.
Can you say Edward Woodward 5 times quickly?
Edward Woodward, I cannot.
Oh.
It is beyond my skill set.
Craig?
Edward Woodward, I can't.
Edward Woodward.
Oh. Shaq?
Edward Woodward.
Shaq, you're really good at it.
Yes, I've been working on that all week.
That's the best thing you've ever done on the show.
Thank you very much.
That's worth a contract.
I'll be going to see the boss right after this.
Get in there. Get in there while the going's good.
Did you see Extra Time? Just go in there, just saying Edward Woodward all the time.
Bang your foot and say Edward Woodward. And if he don't give you a new contract, I'll be shocked.
Gab, how much should Edward Woodward take the blame for what's been going on?
We just call him Ed Woodward. Please. Look, there's one thing that really bugs me in this, right? When people look at this and say, oh, look, Manchester United, it's shambolic. Everyone's to blame. The players are to blame. Woodwards are to blame. Avram and Joel Glazer are to blame. Albert's to blame. Mourinho's to blame. No. Everybody that has responsibility may be to blame to some degree. But there are certain people who are more responsible than others. And obviously Mourinho was the most responsible because he had the most responsibility. I think where you would point a finger at Ed Woodward is that he's been in charge now for 6 years on the footballing side as well. And I think you can question his appointments. Certainly Van Gaal comes into it. Certainly Mourinho. Beyond that, we get Mourinho's version of events. Oh, why didn't you sign Alderweireld? And then United indirectly filter out Woodward's version of events. And by the way, as somebody who works in newspapers, I can tell you that in the next week, we're going to get a whole slew of horror stories and how bad Mourinho did this and bad Mourinho did that and Mourinho this and Mourinho that. All this negativity to help justify the decision. But for me, other than some big picture stuff, like not appointing a director of football when he appointed Mourinho, I don't know, and overpaying for players, which you can put down to perhaps wanting to please big names like Van Gaal or Mourinho himself, which I think he undoubtedly did with many of these guys. I think those are the main charges that you would put at his door, and you hope that he's on some kind of learning curve.
Wonder what the players' Christmas party is going to be like.
Well, better than it would be yesterday.
If it's fancy dress, you think they're all going to go out as Mourinho? That'd be a final nail in the coffin, wouldn't it?
Why are you dressed up as Mourinho?
Just to take, well, they're clearly, most as Pogba did today, there's not a lot of respect there. There's no point.
Can you do it 10 times, Shaka?
Sorry.
Yep. Oh. What are you apologising for?
Dan.
What? What's happening? What's happened?
Sorry. As on this Pogba Instagram thing,
yes,
it was a scheduled post that his sponsor did. If you believe Pogba sat there like posing for a selfie or flipping through pictures of himself on his phone and said, "Haha, Mourinho's been sacked. Let me go and put this out there and put my sponsor's name on it as well." That's not what happened.
Julian suggested that it was planned, that he meant to do it. That it wasn't a coincidence.
Okay, well, maybe Jules has spoken to Pogba, but Pogba's people and I believe his sponsors say otherwise.
Oh, they would.
As do United.
Oh, they would. And they would. And they all would. Ed Woodward would.
I would just be
as well.
What I would say is it would be out of character for Pogba to do something like this. He's had issues before, and he hasn't gone and reacted in this way. You know, that's all I'm going to say. I mean, between that and the denial, for me at least, I'm satisfied that it wasn't his version of rubbing it in.
Go on, Shane.
What?
Do it.
No,
go on.
Yeah, new contract first.
No, go on. Just as we say goodbye. I like it when you do it.
No.
Go on.
No.
Your money could double.
Right?
Saying Edward.
Good point.
That is it. Are you back tomorrow, Shane?
Well, that's very low.
No. Back on Thursday.
Well, good. You get tomorrow. You can work in your Ed Woodwards.
He doesn't need to. It's beautiful.
Yes, majestic.
Right. It's impressive.
When I sign that new contract, I'll let you know and I'll do 10.
You're here tomorrow, aren't you, Craig? Raf Honigstein here as well to reflect on Borussia Dortmund. Was their first defeat, I think, of the domestic season? I'm going to go with that.
Okay.
That's the North London derby.
Oh, okay, all right.
The players are good enough, aren't they?
For what?
So, for a top, let's say top 4 finish.
Some of them are.
This is a team that should.
Well, you say that, and then you look at, so you take Liverpool and City out the equation because they seem to be a cut above.
Yeah.
You know, I hate combined teams, you know that. But if you look at the Tottenham starting 11, there's not too many off the top of my head I would swap. If you look at the Chelsea starting 11, there's not too many I would swap. So whilst I go back to my point, they're better than what we've been seeing, but I'm not quite sure they're as good as what maybe some think they are. And when I look at other squads and other talent levels at Chelsea and Tottenham, in particular, and certainly Liverpool and Man City, then it's a worrying scenario for the new full-time boss when he comes in. It is a big restructure.
I think the danger here, or not necessarily danger, but you're thinking of these Manchester United players as they are now, or as they have been this season. But if you start thinking about those players when they were at their best, maybe they are their Lukaku's, the Sanchez's, Pogba's gets into that Spurs starting 11 or that Chelsea starting 11. the trouble is those players are a shadow of their former selves, or what we've come to expect. 2 years ago, we were doing side-by-side comparisons between Lukaku and where else can he necessarily fit in, and he pretty much had a choice. And now all of a sudden, I'm not sure where he goes outside the top six.
Jose Mourinho has been sacked as manager of Manchester United. The decision made late Monday night between the executive chairman of the club, Ed Woodward, and the club's owners, the Glazer family. Mourinho leaves the club having led Manchester United to their worst ever start in the Premier League era, coming on the heels of two disappointing seasons, albeit a first season where they did win the Europa League and the League Cup. Clearly, things had come to a head. There was a breakdown in terms of relationship with players, and the results simply weren't good. 19 points off the pace in the Premier League. What next for Manchester United? Well, in the immediate, certainly this week, Michael Carrick, of course, former United legend who had been Mourinho's assistant, will take training. But we're led to believe that the club's plan is to appoint a more experienced interim manager between now and the end of the season. Remember, they still have trophies to fight for. They're still in the Champions League round of 16. Maybe they can hope to go on a run for that. And then use that time with the interim manager in charge to go and try to secure a really big name, long-term option. The names that have been mentioned include, of course, Mauricio Pochettino from Tottenham Hotspur, Max Allegri from Juventus, Diego Simeone from Atletico Madrid. Now, obviously, getting one of these names isn't easy, and it's not cheap, and you need to be discreet about it because, of course, all these teams are still competing for major silverware themselves, not least in the Champions League. But that seems to be the plan for now. What next for Jose Mourinho? Well, in the short term, you certainly expect him to take some time off, to pause and reflect. In terms of taking another really top-tier job, whether in Europe or in the Premier League, I don't really see that happening. There's no question that his brand has been pretty seriously damaged, not just by the disappointing 2.5 seasons at Manchester United, but also by the very acrimonious way he left his two previous clubs after delivering silverware, Chelsea and, of course, before that, Real Madrid. One club that he has been linked with, and it would represent a return, is Inter Milan. Of course, he led them to a treble 8 years ago and was really the only club that he left on really good terms. But of course, Luciano Spalletti very much entrenched there for the time being. In the summer, who knows? Another possibility that will no doubt be mooted, and it's something Mourinho has spoken about in the past, is at some point taking the Portugal job. But of course, that won't become available for some time now. But as we said, for the time being, it's about sitting on the sidelines and starting to rebuild a severely damaged brand.
Mauricio Pochettino seems to have been on the lips of everyone today regarding a long-term replacement for Jose Mourinho. How much is that speculation from the fans, and how much actually is there some solid truth to it?
No, it's solid. You know, people at the club are big fans of Pochettino. It's not been a surprise for a while. When Louis van Gaal left the club, United were keen to speak to Pochettino when he spoke to Ryan Giggs and Jose Mourinho. He's the top of their list. He's the only candidate, I've been told, at this stage. So whether they can get Pochettino out of Tottenham is a big question, because obviously Real Madrid are looking for a new permanent manager next summer. He might fancy that instead. But, you know, Man United is a massive club, and at some point somebody's going to get it right here. Somebody's going to restore the glory days, or something close to the glory days of Ferguson. And all managers have got big egos, and they want to be the guy that turns a failing club into a success. And, you know, Pochettino is, for United's point of view, from Ed Woodward's point of view, he's got a guy that will bring the young players through. He can work to a budget, which, we've been told that United don't spend money. Well, they do spend money, but they do kind of look for value in the market at times. And he's a guy that plays attacking football as well, so he does tick all the boxes. And he's a young guy that will take on Pep Guardiola across the town at Man City and fancy his chances. So if it isn't Pochettino, they've got a problem, because they don't really have a plan B, and that's been United's problem since Ferguson left. They've not really had a plan B at all. Even the plan A has not really worked very well. So if plan A doesn't work this time, I don't know where they go.
It's interesting you take a look at the odds, Jules. You've got Zinedine Zidane and Laurent Blanc in the betting as well. Could there be a French connection to Old Trafford?
Yeah, I think, Laurent Blanc for sure is very keen on the job. He would love to have it. Him and his camp have been pushing for it. He was not offered anything. Today, I was told that he had been part of some of the conversations inside Old Trafford between some key members of the hierarchy at the club. I think he has his support for sure in there. However, I think he's a long way back behind Mauricio Pochettino, and I think even Zidane probably will look a better fit for some people at United, although the problem for Zidane is that he doesn't speak the language, and it's something that is very important for him to be able to communicate with his player. We know that a lot of his managing qualities are about man management, about being close to his dressing room, close to his players, and obviously with not much English or not English at all at the beginning, it will be very hard for him to do that. So I don't think either of them really is in the running right now for a longer term. But if United couldn't get Pochettino, I think Zidane might be just ahead of Blanc in the running.
In the end, is it fair to say Pogba won, Jules?
Yeah, I mean, to reassure you first, me and Paul are good. You know, we're good. We're friends. We're friends. But in a way, he won. In a way, he won. He never tried to get him sacked. Of course, no, he didn't. He didn't have any conversation, to my knowledge, with Ed Woodward or the Glazer family, and you know, telling them he has to go or I will go. It was not a case of that. But Paul Pogba was a very happy man this morning for sure, and very relieved. And you knew he was going to have a pop at some point, and he did it in that Instagram post that he deleted then, but you knew he was going to do something, because it's been a really tough time for Pogba in the last, well, since the beginning of the season really, with Mourinho humiliating him publicly pretty much every single week, and I think maybe Pogba should have done better, more on the pitch. That's a fair point. However, the way he was treated by Jose Mourinho, he will feel deep inside him that he won that battle.
Jules, there are suggestions I saw from some that it was just a coincidence that came up during the time of Mourinho's sacking. For you, that was completely meant.
I would think that Paul would have that kind of pop with Jose Mourinho. Maybe it was just a mistake. Maybe, you know, it was always going to be posted today, this morning, regardless of what's going on at the club, and that Pogba and his people around him didn't know about it. I would like to think that Pogba did that on purpose, actually. I think that, you know, I don't see the disrespect there after what happened between them since August. And you know what? He fair to him if he tried to have a pop and then, okay, deleted it. But he clearly felt so badly treated by Mourinho in many respects, not just, you know, publicly in press conferences or stripping him of the vice captain armband and things like that. That, you know, I would respect Paul for trying to have a pop.
So then, Gab Marcotti, apart from counting all of his payoff money, what next for Mourinho?
Well, we've been wondering that. There's a column about this going up on the site on Wednesday, Dan. I don't think there's any question that in the eyes of people making hiring decisions at big clubs, Jose Mourinho is now very much a damaged brand. This was going to be his bounce-back opportunity after what happened at Chelsea and at Real Madrid at Old Trafford, and it just simply didn't work out that way. And I think especially the nature of his problems, you look at the way the game has changed. It's now globalized. They're running a business, and having a guy who brings this toxicity and negativity with him, that's going to put people off. So too will the fact that, you know, this is a guy who will go and call out his employers if he's not getting what he wants. This is a guy who's going to go and isn't going to be afraid to go and take on his biggest stars and bench them and criticize them. And, you know, these days, great footballers are assets on a balance sheet to clubs. It's just the way the game is going now. So put all those things together, and before we even get into something like his style of play and how different it is, certainly among the top clubs in Europe, with the possible exception of Atletico Madrid and occasionally Juventus, nobody really plays that way. It's hard to see him getting a job, I think, at that highest level.
Maybe just down the level slightly, though. We've seen him linked to Inter Milan.
Well, funnily enough, Inter Milan are the one club that he did not leave on bad terms. Inter Milan and, I should say, Porto as well. Maybe Laria before that as too. But and so inevitably people are going to make that connection. Spalletti's certainly right now, Inter will tell you that Spalletti has their trust. We'll see what happens at the end of the season. Certainly working for Inter means embarking on a long rebuild job, doing so within the confines of financial fair play. And, you know, in terms of media criticism and intrusion, and, you know, we heard Craig say how stressful the job is. That's certainly not going to be any less stressful. And in fact, in some ways, it's going to be more stressful than United was. So I honestly don't know. There's also the possibility of the Portugal job when that job comes available. But what I do hope is that Jose Mourinho goes away, takes some time to reflect, sees what he could have done differently, maybe gets himself a little bit up to date, and comes back and kind of rebuilds.
So ESPN sources suggesting there will be a caretaker manager that will come in until the end of the season before Manchester United appoint their next permanent coach. Let's take a look at some of the options that United have, Craig. We've got, well, 7 of the best, if you like, here. So we want to kind of mix realism with possibility. So we've got 7.
We've got 2 other, I would say, the best in England, in Klopp and Pep Guardiola. But
yes,
we can definitely rule them.
Yeah, that's done.
So,
so that's not happening. Obviously, that's not going to take place. So at number 5, yeah.
Well, look, if I was looking at short-termism, which we're not, I would probably look at Jardim with his good job at Monaco. He did with some great players, and Laurent Blanc. Long term, I'm ruling them out.
Okay.
If I'm descending down, I would probably start with Antonio Conte in 5th. Again, I think he would be somebody who'd come into a short term.
You're ascending up. Not descending down.
Ascending up, sorry, but yeah, whatever. You know.
Can't say that at 5.
Semantics. Right, Conte at 5, and then I would go Diego Simeone. I think he's a fabulous manager, but again, I don't think he's going to fit with that surly attitude, very combative.
The style of play as well, isn't?
Yeah, and you know, I just don't think so. I think he's perfectly suited where he is. I don't think that one will happen. And then something that we've talked about in the show a lot.
Yeah.
And I know we were talking about it yesterday again with Julien Laurent. Yeah. I'm not sure he wants to go in there with such a big overhaul of players that's needed. There's a language barrier as well, which Julien has touched on. So I think if United were in a better footing, and clearly then maybe they wouldn't be looking for a manager, but I think if they're on a better footing, that might interest them, that job. But I think it is such a big turnaround, I don't think we'll see him take it. The guy I think who might be the best candidate, I just don't think he'll go, is Allegri. He's certainly got the most experience. He's had huge success at more than one club in Italy. He's handled big players, and he's handling a big one at the moment in Ronaldo. But why? You know, you're not going to leave Juventus, Dan.
No, not what considering what's happening at United. As well.
No, and what he's got at Juventus with that squad and Ronaldo and getting to Champions League finals, that's not going to happen. So it leaves the one that Tottenham fans are going to absolutely hate. And it's not exactly rocket science, is it? Because everybody's talking about it. But if you're looking at long-termism, he fits the bill because of his age. He's got the experience now, particularly in the Premier League from Southampton and Tottenham. Yeah. He's worked with relatively tight finances and a smallish squad, not a small squad, but a smallish compared to some. His style of football's been excellent. He's got them in the top 4. Some might say he's in the title race this year, we'll see. He's got through to the knockout of the Champions League. They're moving to a new stadium. Can Daniel Levy convince him that the money's going to be there and the players are going to stay? I know some of them have signed new contracts. And does he want to go to Man United with the problems that I mentioned for Zidane and 1 or 2 others? Does he see United as a feasible job where he can turn that around? And he's going to get the backing of Ed Woodward. He's going to work with a sporting director, and he's going to be able to overhaul that squad. That's a question in his mind, but
the problem he's going to have as well, let's not forget Santi Solari. You can't imagine him, let's face it, staying at Real Madrid long term. So they're going to come knocking maybe Pochettino's door.
And the thing is, and it goes on, you know, whilst United may be targeting him full time in the summer, he could be already been tapped up by Real Madrid. Yeah. It goes on, let's not kid ourselves. They might have said, listen, hang fire 6 months, whatever, you get in this job. Because Santi's got a contract for a year or 2, but we're going to go to the summer, then we're going to talk with him. Right? They would take him over Solari or most.
And he would take Madrid over United.
He would take Madrid over United, absolutely. So that's the problem for Man United. That if that happens, it's a problem for Tottenham as well, but if that happens, then they're going back down the list and maybe they're going out left field somewhere else. But I would go all out to try and get him, even though people say, well, he hasn't won anything yet. Give it time. It would be a big job. I think United fans would be happy with that. Tottenham fans would absolutely hate it. I get that, but it's the world that we live in.
Yeah.
And I think United should go out, all out, and try and get Maurizio Pochettino and make it long-term, because this club needs a full rebuild.
Craig, thank you very much. A lot more from Craig and Andy, the rest of the boys, throughout the day as we react to the news that Jose Mourinho has been sacked as coach of Manchester United.
It's not just where they are in the table and where they are in their progression. It's the fact that if you look at the gap between them and the top of the league, it's absolutely enormous. You know, you've had 24-point gap, a 19-point gap, the 24-point gap, the biggest gap with the top of the league since 1990. And of course, right now the gap is 19 points and is obviously projected to grow between now and the end of the season. So you put those things together and you really have a very, very tough situation. And just to add to what Mark said earlier about why they did it now, I'm led to believe that one other factor is that they have a relatively easy or easier run of fixtures coming up. Obviously, Cardiff, I think they have Bournemouth again and whatnot. And so it makes for a softer landing. And also, they wanted to avoid another transfer window with Mourinho going out there and moaning about not signing this and not signing that, and why don't you sell this guy and loan this guy who I don't like and whatever else. And this way they can calm down, assess what they have, and try to move forward for next year.